You know that moment when you're standing in the middle of your apartment at 3 a.m., staring at a half-packed suitcase, and you can't remember whether you're leaving or trying to convince yourself to stay. That was me, 3 months ago. I was holding a photo, just a simple snapshot from our trip to the coast, and I realized I couldn't even remember the last time we'd laughed together. Not really laughed. The kind of laugh that makes your stomach hurt and your eyes water. That's when I knew it was over, and yet I still couldn't bring myself to close the suitcase. I never thought I'd be that guy. You know, the one who posts vague quotes about new beginnings while secretly scrolling through old messages at 2 a.m. I always judge those people, the ones who made their breakups look like a cinematic tragedy. But here I was, sitting on the floor of my closet, surrounded by reminders of a life I didn't know how to let go of. Her favorite mug was still on the shelf. I hadn't touched it. I couldn't. It felt like if I moved it, I'd be admitting she was really gone. The silence in the apartment was deafening. No more arguments about whose turn it was to do the dishes. No more passive-aggressive notes on the fridge. Just quiet. And that quiet was somehow louder than all the fights we'd ever had. We'd been together for 7 years. 7 years of shared jokes, late-night conversations, dreams we'd built together. And then, one day, it all just stopped. Not with a bang, but with a whisper. A series of small silences that grew into a chasm neither of us knew how to cross. I remember the exact moment I realized something was wrong. We were at a restaurant, celebrating what should have been a good day. I'd just gotten a promotion. She smiled and said congratulations, but her eyes didn't light up, not like they used to. And when I reached for her hand under the table, she let me hold it, but there was no squeeze back, no warmth, just a hand. And that's when it hit me. We weren't two people anymore. We were two strangers sharing a meal. The days that followed were a blur. I kept trying to fix it, not because I believed we could be saved, but because I was terrified of what came next. The unknown, the emptiness, the idea of having to rebuild a life from scratch, like I was 18 again and didn't know what I was doing. I tried everything. Surprise dates, long talks, even therapy. But every conversation felt like we were both wearing masks, pretending to be the people we used to be. And the worst part, I could see her trying to. We were both actors in a play we no longer believed in. One night, after another hollow conversation, I went for a walk. It was raining, not the romantic kind of rain, but the cold, relentless kind that soaks you to the bone. I ended up at a park we used to go to, back when everything was still good. I sat on a bench, watching the rain turn the leaves into tiny mirrors, and I asked myself a question I'd been avoiding. What if the problem isn't her? What if the problem is me? Because here's the thing they don't tell you about breakups. It's not just about losing the other person. It's about losing the version of yourself that existed in that relationship. The person who laughed at their jokes, who learned to love their weird habits, who built a whole identity around us. And when us disappears, you're left with a stranger in the mirror. I spent weeks trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Was it the fight about moving? The silence after she lost her job? The way we stopped touching each other? But the truth is, there was no single moment. It was 1,000 tiny cuts, unspoken resentments, missed opportunities to say I love you. The slow erosion of trust and intimacy. And then, one morning, I woke up and realized something terrifying. I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of her. I missed the person she used to be. The person I used to be with her. But the woman sitting across the breakfast table wasn't that person anymore. And neither was I. That's when the real work began. Not the work of saving the relationship, but the work of saving myself. I had to learn how to be alone without feeling lonely. How to fill the silence with something other than regret. How to look at that half-packed suitcase and finally close it. It wasn't pretty. There were nights I cried into my pillow like a teenager. Days I called her just to hear her voice, then hung up before she answered. Moments I swore I'd go back, that maybe we could fix it if we just tried harder. But every time I took that step backward, I'd remember the emptiness in her eyes at the restaurant, the hand that didn't squeeze back. So I started small. I rearranged the furniture. I threw out the mug. I deleted the photos I couldn't look at without pain. And slowly, inch by inch, I began to reclaim my life. I picked up running again, something I'd loved before we met. At first, every step felt like punishment. But then, one morning, I ran until I couldn't think anymore, until the only thing in my head was the rhythm of my feet on the pavement. That was freedom. I reconnected with old friends. I took up painting. Badly, but it didn't matter. I started saying yes to things I'd always been too scared to try. And somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, I found something unexpected. Peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind that comes from accepting that some things can't be fixed. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go. Today, I can look at that photo from the coast and smile. Not because I miss what we had, but because I'm grateful for it. For the love, the lessons, the memories, and for the person it helped me become. Because here's what they also don't tell you about breakups. They're not just endings. They're beginnings. They're the universe's way of saying, you're ready for something better. If you're going through this right now, I want you to know, it gets better. Not tomorrow, maybe not even next month. But one day, you'll wake up and realize you haven't thought about them in days. You'll laugh at something stupid and not feel guilty for enjoying yourself. You'll look in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. It won't happen overnight. There will be bad days. But every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. Every tear you cry is a brick in the foundation of your new life. So close the suitcase. Delete the messages. Take the first step. Your future self is waiting. If this resonated with you, hit subscribe, because there's more to come.